Yep. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, March 5th West Fargo City Commission meeting. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Next is the approve the order of the agenda. A couple of changes, or additions, I should say. One is the aiming site authorization for at Hooligans for the team makers. And on the regular agenda, we're adding resolution of necessity for project district number 1308 and a resolution of necessity for district number 2244. And those are all the changes I have.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, approve the minutes of the February 19th meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, building permits. In the back. Any questions on the building permits? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve with the changes.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to the regular agenda. Item number 1, a 5:30 public hearing and second reading of zoning ordinance amendments to section 4-431. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you recall from your last meeting, we have some amendments to the Corridor Overlay District and the Cheyenne Street Corridor Overlay District. The first one was to kind of accommodate some improvements to some roadways which created nonconformities, and we wanted to fix that. The other, the Cheyenne Street Overlay District, was for encroachment of signs. I wanted to bring to your attention, and I highlighted in your packet, some changes we made since the first reading to the Corridor Overlay District. In there we added some statements in the intent to try to give direction to this proposed change. The direction here sets forth a regard required for adjacent land uses and their urban appeal, which would include such things as streetscaping, lighting, and other amenities that encourage interaction beyond vehicular traffic. The intent there is that as we look at those site plans, that you have a basis for what you're deciding upon. If you recall, we have no longer that required yard requirement in the front, so you have to have some sort of basis to judge that on in that site design and approval that you have now in this ordinance. We also added 13th Avenue East. The improvements that we've proposed on 13th Avenue East are going to create the same condition on Cheyenne Street that we talked about at the last meeting. So the 13th Avenue project between 9th and 17th as part of the Fargo project is creating that same issue here that we have on Cheyenne. So we added that in there. We feel like this is a little bit of a stopgap for ordinance overhauls in the future, but we feel it's a good compromise. And then the other item under Boulevard front yard plantings, we received a letter actually after we did the first reading from the Forestry Committee stating that the 13th Avenue tree planting plan is no longer valid. A lot of the trees within that plan are no longer considered species that are successful in our environment, and they also have some odd kind of placement of trees that don't match up with the neighborhood. So we removed that from here. So that's another change that we made, and you'll find that in your packet as well. There is another change we'll have to make to another portion of ordinance for that we'll bring back at a future date. And also, as you recall, we had our timing a little bit off on the first reading where we normally have a public hearing. So tonight we've scheduled a public hearing. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions of Tim before I open the public hearing? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? One more time, is there any public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Thorstad will be abstaining from this vote. Any questions of Tim? Comments? If not, do I hear a motion for second reading?
Make a motion for another second reading. Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, a public hearing and first reading of Pioneer Place, first edition. This is a replat and rezoning. Tim.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. We received this application to accommodate, what happened there? To accommodate a mixed-use multi-story building within a C-like commercial district on Cheyenne Street. That is also the Cheyenne Street Overlay District. The project is modeled after the recently constructed Cheyenne Plaza to the south. This project is proposed as a planned unit development as well to accommodate the mix of uses and unique site characteristics proposed within the development. Site and building are being designed under the guidelines set within the overlay district. The building would have a 0 lot line setback and diagonal public parking provided in the front within the proposed dedicated city right-of-way. The sidewalks would be widened to accommodate increased pedestrian activity. Parking is also provided underground in the rear and to the south. Biggest challenge that the developer found in meeting the overlay district requirements was parking to the south and north of the property. We've since changed that, and you'll see kind of in the staff report it progresses toward this, but their current plan here shows the building moved to the north as much as possible and having that south lot be a parking lot. They have 2 points for that. One is they want to have a storefront on the main floor of that south property. They really want to have parking for that. Now that goes against our overlay district. One other item that they point to is that they want to have redevelopment opportunities for this lot and potentially a lot to the south in the future. So if they were to move this somewhere in the center and have open space or anything else there, it would kind of remove that opportunity. So Planning Commission struggled a bit with that, but has felt that they could move this forward to the City Commission for consideration of that point that they can't meet within the Cheyenne overlay. The building here is proposed to be faced primarily of glass on the main floor. The upper floors would need to be further developed in consideration of district standards and taking any comments from the Commission. We have written in there right now that they should be based on a Cheyenne Street design guideline. We don't really have that, so the point is to bring it before the Commission to decide that. Staff and the Planning Commission have found consistency within the existing comprehensive plan and the proposed development under the headings of land use and community growth, community identity, community reinvestment, and economic development. Planning Commission first reviewed the plans and concept at their December 11th, 2017 meeting and held a public hearing. Detailed plans were reviewed at the next meeting at February 12th, 2018. Planning Commission is hereby recommending that the City approve the proposed application on the basis that it may be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan and City ordinances with conditions as reported in the staff report. Outside of what I kind of commented on, a couple things that came to light in the public hearing was that construction was an issue at Cheyenne Plaza, and a construction parking plan should be provided to be reviewed by the City Engineer and Public Works Director to avoid nuisance within the neighborhood. The second was illuminated signage. Although it is unlikely, we want to have it in the PUD that there would be no illuminated signage on the west elevation facing the residential, so on the back of the building. Those were 2 big points to bring out. Lots probably to talk about with this, but I think I'd like to open it up for any questions you might have for myself or the developer. And Matt Marshall has been very involved in this process and probably could answer a lot more questions about the detail of the plan. There's a lot still to be probably worked out to finish up that we bring forward in the second reading, but we felt like we need to have that public hearing and first reading to kind of talk about the big issues. So with that, a public hearing is scheduled.
Any questions of Tim or Matt?
I just have one, and okay, maybe just real quick. I was going to call you and I forgot to, Matt, so I apologize. But how many levels are on the building? There now. 4.5. 4.5? How do you get 4.5?
Right here.
No, I mean on the present building. Okay, so there's, so this is gonna be shorter than the building that's there now? Was that always like that in the plans?
No.
'Cause I thought it was gonna be the same.
Yeah, I think originally, they were very consistent. But this one because.
Matt.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Originally they were considering 5 stories, but they want to do this balcony concept and do some more residential, and so that's how they end up with the 4.5.
Any other questions?
Just a question, Tim. I know we're going to narrow up Cheyenne's, or we hope to narrow up Cheyenne Street. Are you any concern with the crosswalks again, because stuff doesn't line up there with any? We don't have a ton of foot traffic now, but if they're coming from the east side there, they'd have to walk through parked cars.
Yep, this plan here, would be, they would move this so that there'd be a crossing at, Third. So Third would have a logical crossing. We could lower that gap there with this, kind of bulb out. So that gap would be probably reduced to like more like a 24, 26 foot wide. Similar to downtown Fargo on Broadway.
I'm an A crosswalk, at least one in there, so.
Yeah. Yep, so we're at the intersection. That's where some of those, they need to further develop this. As we've moved along, they've changed things, so that's a good question, thank you.
Any other questions?
One more, Tim. So there's gonna be, is it basically the bottom floor is gonna be all that will be retail then?
Yes.
And then the second floor up are all gonna be apartments? It's not gonna
Correct.
be office, professional office space at all in this facility then?
Correct. Yep.
That has changed then.
Yeah, I think the original building that was proposed was a conceptual building. I think they want to bring more density downtown, living density. So you're absolutely right. The first floor retail, and the rest of the floor is residential. They've got about 40 units as opposed to the 22 or 18 in the other one. And the idea is to try and get more people down there and make it a little more vital area at greater times during the day. So
God wants to say something.
Let's wait till the public hearing, okay?
Okay.
Any other questions of those two before we open the public hearing? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? Now, you're up, Todd.
Sorry about that. I'm
No.
not very good at parliamentary stuff. I gotta get the statistics right. There's 51 units in this building. And as we went through the process of what are we going to build that makes economic sense so we don't have vacant space, etc., we did another apartment study in conjunction with HUD, and we were actually trying to get this as part of HUD financing and working through that. That part became more difficult, but the results of the study was very enlightening. And so we're making smaller, denser units. So entry level is like at $800 to $900. And the other thing that we did is create a big common space, 365 days a year. I think if you put that one rendering up, it shows it if it's page 2. Sorry. Yeah, there you can see it up the top. And so the far south side will overlook the park, and that's obviously good for days not like today. But then behind that to the north, you can see an enclosed area. And, so through our study, we want to do something that makes sense for continuing to redevelop downtown. And startup type, we have 22 units in the first building. They're $1,100 to $1,200 and they're full. This building is going to have 6 of those units, 45 smaller, denser, I call them the IKEA type units. They have lots of nice amenities, but they're a little tighter. As a result, we can charge less. But the cost per square foot is pretty high because we have lots of plumbing, lots of different, we don't have these big open spaces. They're much denser, and they still all have kitchens. They still all have everything else. So the building value per square foot is quite a bit different than the one than Cheyenne Plaza, which has big open spaces for the offices, et cetera. So there's a method to our madness of what we're trying to do. The main floor is not about office space as much as it is about smaller retail spaces. And the parking lots, for a long time we had them, one parking lot on the north, one on the south. We combined them and created a bigger parking lot to the south that could give us opportunity down the road. But Choice has a parking lot, and it creates nice visual to that north side of the building, which can have a shop facing the north, no problem. Even though it's not their parking lot, it's about visibility. And then the south side, we create the same thing. Yet we give really the city opportunities to do something, because that's still city. The parking lot is city land. It's part of our lease, but it's city land. So I just kind of want to go over. It's the whole building is 3 stories, and then about 3/4 of it is 4 stories. So it's a little different, but there's a reason for it, and just to kind of plug into the mix that we're trying to do.
So Todd, have you built these IKEA style apartments before?
They should pay us for calling it that. No, but it's a derivative of what we did with the 2-story. We've studied it for, a long time. We really have. And no, but I don't want to build commodity apartments. And what I mean by that is the 4,000 units that are right south of us. I'm trying to create things that more startup millennials and retired people want too, if they want to have a place just that come back to in the summer. So we work through that, and they're not the cheapest units to build, but I think they'll be really effective long term to reinvigorate downtown and get that going.
So are these going to be 1 bedrooms at least?
1 and 2s.
Okay, so no studios.
There's 3 of them. I just actually, our banker was over today studying stuff, and there's 3 of them that are at entry level of like $595. I can't remember if I think they're a real tight 1 bedroom. So there's another complex in downtown Fargo that is very similar type rooms that's coming online, and we've been communicating back and forth. They're about 6 months, 8 months ahead of us. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Todd? Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? One more time, is there any other public comment? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any questions of Tim or Matt? We're still planning this spring to start, I hope. Todd?
Absolutely.
Good. Good. We'll go down there tonight and move them out. Huh? Any other questions of Tim? If not, do I hear a motion to put this on first reading?
I'll move.
Second. Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, second reading and final plot approval of Highland Meadows 3rd edition. Larry.
Yes, Your Honor, members of the Commission. The Highland Meadows 3rd edition public hearing was held back in December. We're looking at considering a replatted area of Highland Meadows 1st edition. The replatted lots in this area meet the R1SM regulations, and the number of lots were reduced by 3 for this area being replatted. There'd be a total of 41 lots in the area that are being replatted. The application also considers rezoning to R1SM, those lots, and also all of Block 2, which would consist of 33 lots. And all of the properties meet the R1SM zoning district. I'd be open for any questions. This will be a second reading.
Any questions of Larry? If not, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to put it on second reading.
And final plat approval. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and motion carried. Item 4, final plat approval of West Fargo's 9th edition, a replat. Larry.
Yes, the West Fargo 9th edition has been in progress for a fair amount of time. Was considered last summer. The subdivision was being considered at the same time as West Fargo 8th edition. There were some considerations with park dedication or public land dedication, and also consideration of potential additional right-of-way on a future street that's identified in the comp plan. We did some negotiation with the developer. Initially, they included a lot that was beyond what would have normally been involved in the scope of the plat to include potential right-of-way. Later on, they reconsidered the area and decided that they were just looking at park dedication or public land dedication and provided cash in lieu for that. The subdivision then, the primary focus of the subdivision is now just onefold, and that is to address an illegal lot split for property that was sold to business, and this subdivision is addressing that. So the consideration this evening is to simply approve the replat. There's no public hearing required at this point. There was a public hearing held at the Planning and Zoning Commission back in August. The recommendation is to conditionally approve the subdivision plat on the basis that it's consistent with city plans and ordinances. Conditions of approval include items 2 through 5 listed in the report, as well as potentially an encroachment agreement for use of the city's storm sewer easement for truck traffic accessing the street to the north. I'd be open for any questions of the commission.
Any questions of Larry? If not, do I hear a motion for final plat approval?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next item, bid results for capital lease financing, RFP. Aaron.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. In your packet, you should have the results of the capital lease RFP. The low bid was submitted by Choice Financial in Grand Forks for a 5-year term at 2.75%. I request that the Commission approve this bid and give Tina the permission to sign the lease once the attorney approves the contract language. Any questions?
Any questions, Aaron? If not, do I hear a motion to accept the bid?
Make a motion to accept the bid.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, review of the temporary access agreement for Southeast Cass. John.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Commission. This is an agreement with Southeast Cass Water Resource District for District 2244, where the city is going to be installing a riprap and storm pipe in the Cheyenne River, and we need to divert the Cheyenne River through the diversion for a period of time from May 15th through June 15th of this year. And this agreement just allows for the diversion of the water so that the city can go ahead and install that pipe. It's been through engineering. I reviewed it. It just needs to be approved by the commission.
What dates did you say again? May to June?
Yeah, May through May 15th
through June 15th
of this year.
Any questions of John or Dustin? If not, do I hear a motion to for the agreement, the access agreement?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7, review West Fargo Diversion Bridge Agreement. Dustin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. The agreement before you is, or has been through the Southeast Cass Water Resource District Commission already. They have reviewed it and approved it. It's basically an agreement to establish or give the city the right to construct a new bridge over the West Fargo diversion. It's pretty standard agreement language. Southeast Cass will maintain ownership of the right-of-way. The city will own and maintain the street and the bridge within that right-of-way. One thing to point out in this agreement on page 2, section 2, Southeast Cass has offered a $100,000 one-time contribution for future operation and maintenance. That payment will come after the execution of this agreement. With that, I'd be open for any questions.
Any questions of Dustin?
Why the one-time fee, Dustin? What's the catch?
The discussion we had in coordinating this agreement was, you know, they would need a crossing and access anyway, so they just felt in good faith it was difficult. It was some subjective to get to $100,000, but if we look at 50 years and $2,000 a year worth of maintenance, whether that's going to be spent annually or if we do a project 50 years down the road where we got to do a resurfacing project, we felt that was a fair contribution on their side.
So are they saying here that if they give us that money, there's no more funding from them for this bridge for 50 years?
Well, it doesn't say anything about longevity. That 50 years is an example.
Okay.
But yes, it is 100% the city's responsibility to install and pay for all the capital costs of installing the bridge and then to maintain this throughout the life of the bridge. Why
would we not just want to play it safe and charge them so, you know, as we go along to make sure, just in case, obviously it could go over that amount? Is this, where's the goodwill faith, I guess I'm wondering. Is this something we would have to pay for without their assistance anyway, or would we
Yes.
we wouldn't charge them anything?
We wouldn't charge them anything anyway, so that's where the good faith comes in, and that they want to donate a one-time $100,000 to help us operate and maintain the bridge, even though that, per this agreement, it is understood that this is 100% the city's bridge.
Well, makes good sense to you three?
We'd also the other nice part is we'd also technically require permission from them, so as another entity, they could potentially say, no, we're not going to allow you to cross it. So I think everybody was acting in good faith when we put this together. So.
Good.
Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8, review the assessment district for Storm Sewer Improvement District 4065, the Gateway West Edition. Dustin.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. Tonight, I'm asking for a whole host of action items here. Basically, last week, staff met with the developer, and as you know, we've been planning and coordinating the development of Gateway West over the last 18 months. And up until last week, it was our understanding as a city that the developer was going to privately install the infrastructure out here. So the sewer, water, storm facilities, the streets was all going to be installed privately. However, during our meeting last week, their mindset changed, and they asked if the city could create an assessment district, at least for the stormwater improvements, which will include putting in the stormwater retention ponds, a stormwater pumping station, and the force main from that pumping station over to where that will tie into on Cheyenne Street. We, of course, explained that there's a legal process with creating an assessment district. The biggest hurdle is to get through not just creating an assessment district, but reviewing an engineer's report, reviewing the plans and specs, and then getting authorization to advertise these plans for a minimum of 2 weeks. In an effort to not disrupt construction on their side. They're hoping to start construction sometime in April. We said that we would take all of these action items to the commission meeting tonight and have them approved in one fell swoop instead of segment. Typically we would create a district, and then a couple weeks later bring forward an engineer's report, and a couple weeks later bring forward the plans and specs. However, in this case, in the effort of getting the bid open sooner than later, it was, let's go through all of these motions in one meeting tonight, and that way we can proceed with organizing a bid and get the bids open by hopefully the end of March so that construction can begin concurrently with when they plan their site construction. But again, the change now is that the stormwater components will now be a city project and will be assessed to that property, if that makes sense.
And it's not too late in the game to do that?
It's not. We have been working with them for some time now on their plans, so we're pretty familiar with what the plan is, the design is. The only thing we have to do by assessment law is we have to go through and have the commission review and approve an engineer's report and plans and specs, and then authorize advertising the bids. Once we get this authorization, we will then prepare an advertisement that will go in the paper next week. We have to advertise for a minimum of 2 weeks, and then we legally can open bids. I don't know that we'll have a bid package ready within 2 weeks, but after meeting with them, they were really concerned that there wouldn't be a delay, so we said, well, the best thing to do is get everything before the commission tonight so that moving forward, all we have to worry about is assembling that bid package and getting it on the street as soon as we can.
Do you know, Dustin, I mean, it probably doesn't matter, but just more of a curious question. Did it become too much of a money issue? It's just too big of a project?
That's our thought. If you ask them, they would say there was a communication breakdown. They thought we were proceeding with an assessment district. So from staff side, that was not the case. When we explained that, if to create a district, we would have done this months ago so that we wouldn't be in this particular situation. We think on our end that, yes, financially, there got to be quite a bit on their plate in terms of the capital cost to get going and carving out this chunk. You'll see the total project there is about $2 million. That's otherwise would have been paid out of their pocket.
I'm actually glad to see that they tried, because it's nice to see developers get out there and build to try to do this, but I think it's almost impossible when you talk this kind of money for any one of our local builders or developers to come up with this kind of money. And the reason I say that is because we hear this all the time, Mayor, from home builders and stuff saying that they want to go that route, but it's not as easy as they think it is.
And so that is now. Didn't hear that straight from them that there was a financial issue, but I'm pretty sure that must have been what it was. Okay. And then just to make clear that the sewer and water and the street component will still be installed by the developer and then turned over to the city. So the city will become owner of the utilities, but to your point, they will still financially pay for the capital expense to install the sewer and water.
Now, obviously, it'll be our inspectors going out, though, to make sure that the work is
yes.
on property.
Yes, that was drafted into the developers agreement last year, that the city staff and engineer will administrate construction, periodically inspect, still gather all the testing reports that we typically do with our other city projects before we will accept the ownership of those utilities.
Okay, thank you, Dustin.
John, can we, all these action items, can we put them in one package?
Yeah, you can do them all in one resolution.
Okay. Any other questions of Dustin? If not, do I hear a motion for the assessment district and all the other action items?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, Review the parking regulations. Chris?
Mayor and Commissioners, I put this item on the agenda with Commissioner Simmons to discuss our existing 72-hour parking ordinance. We were having issues with it. It's not currently working as intended. There's many vehicles, trailers, not necessarily boats at this time of the year, but snowmobile trailers. Boats still. They're being parked out here, and many times they're being moved just incrementally forward, a foot, 6 inches, whatever, or the chalk lines are being erased off, and so it's not really functioning as intended. We've been spitballing with staff and the commissioners about different ways to better improve our parking ordinance. We can require a longer distance that's been moved, or we've discussed even odd parking the sides of the street. And we've also, I think something that I think have some merit is discussing limiting no parking on the streets on the day of your garbage between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So this would make it easier for enforcement from the police department. They drive down the street, they see there is no vehicle there, so they don't have to drive down each street and check tires. Snow removal is very pertinent today. If we come through on that garbage day, we can clean that road, from curb to curb, street sweeping, road repair. So there's a lot of benefits to actually require an area to be off. Some of the downfalls on a scheme like that is what do we do in the commercial areas, and what do we do in areas around like South Elementary School, where that on-street parking is required every day of the week. So those are some issues we have to go through. And we're really just looking for some feedback and some dialogue to see what your commission true intent is.
It wouldn't really be an issue in the commercial district, do you think? There's not a lot of, I don't think. Anyway.
I think some of those areas like commercial district, we may have to require there's no parking in over nighttime hours instead of during daytime. So, if you're in front of the new plaza on Cheyenne Street, no parking on Wednesday could have a very big effect on that.
True.
So if we have no overnight parking like on a Wednesday, that could achieve the same thing. There's devils in the details. We really have to get through those, but we just want to get some feedback and see if we're going down the right path on something like this.
One of the things, commissioners, we have on the books now is you have to move your vehicle or whatever it is every 72 hours, and you have to move it, Heath. I think it's 3 inches. And it's almost bizarre. We have, and again, it's unfortunate you have some bad apples here, but we have an individual that will actually go out there and move his vehicle 3 inches. And so it takes up a lot of time with the PD. I know our safety officers out there all the time with it. And it's just ridiculous. There's no reason, I don't think, quite honestly, even to get started, we could move something like that up to 100 feet. Then at least the individual's got to take the time to hook it up to his vehicle and pull it somewhere. But 3 inches, I mean, and all it's doing, it's a nuisance, and it's
saving gas.
Well, it's just bizarre. I mean, like I said, we don't have many people like that, but we do have a few that play the game, and it's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to the other citizens. It's taking our PD people away from that. It's taking Chris away. I think that's something we could do very, very quickly, Chris. Is move that, just change that ordinance up to like 100 feet. I think that would alleviate some of the problems right there.
As we move forward, and I think there's a lot of wishes to investigate the removal of all parking on a certain day of the week too.
So you're suggesting no parking like on a certain side of the street on garbage day?
Well, I think like in front of my house, my garbage day is on Friday. So when it comes to, we already have no parking on one side of the street, and there's parking allowed on one side. So on come Fridays between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., there'd be no parking allowed on the street at all. Which I think most people are at work, so you probably have some families with students and things like that in the summer might have cars parked down there, but at least we know that they get moved. I think that's a big issue.
About in front of my house where they park continually over there from Fargo Elementary, how you gonna make that work?
And that's some of the issues we have to take a look at. There's, like I said, I mentioned the South Elementary, but you're correct with the LA Burger. There is they use that parking.
Teachers park there all the time.
On there, so those are the issues we would have to address and figure a workaround on that.
Maybe there could be exemptions in certain areas. 'Cause,
Exactly.
again, it's not that everybody's abusing us, it's very few. You know, and that's why I say to me, even to move forward as quickly as we can with moving just that simple 3 inches to 100 feet would eliminate a lot of the problems right there, I really believe. And, you know, we've talked about this in years past, Chris, and we get on a roll because of the weather now, but then come springtime, other things come to mind in summer, and then it just drifts away and we don't talk about it again.
We've had discussions before about limiting a parking of trailers on the street unless they're attached to a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think come summer you'll see a lot more RVs and campers and boats and things like that being parked.
What's the penalty for not moving it?
What is the price of parking? $8?
That's kind of part of the problem, ain't it?
It's real cheap parking.
But when we impound them, that's a different story. It gets more expensive. And just for the record, so, you know, I'm not suggesting by any means, I know every fall and every spring with the fairgrounds, we allow a little exemption there for people to get their campers and their boats and their special toys out of there. I know we do that every year. We kind of slacken off, and that's perfectly fine with me. But John, I'm wondering, how much would it take us to change that ordinance to go from like what it is now, I believe it's 3 inches, to say 100 feet, so they actually got to hook up and move this stuff?
Well, the ordinance actually doesn't specify a distance, it just says one, from one location, and so the problem
could be an inch.
Yeah, it could be an inch, it could be a foot. It wouldn't take much to increase the distance, and we've talked briefly about this as staff. I think maybe it's time to get a little bit broader look at the parking ordinance in general, because there probably is some merits to reviewing when parking is allowed in residential zones for garbage days, for mail pickup, things like that. And it's probably time to take a comprehensive look at it. I know the ordinances regarding parking were drafted years ago when the community was less than 10,000 people, which that size has a much different need than today's community, which we have a lot more people and parking is at a premium. And frankly, families have more cars now than even 15, 20 years ago.
And Chris, I like your idea and I support it, and I think we should do that. I'm not saying that at all, but what I am saying is when you mention comprehensive plan, that means time and studying and committee, and now we're into next year again. I'm just saying, what can we do? Is there like a quick fix we could do to resolve some of these issues? And then when we go through the study, we can get it right, change it.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a quick ordinance amendment. I don't think the parking would necessarily require a full study. I think it's just getting a group of people together and asking, what do you want for parking regulations? And maybe somebody from Public Works, a commissioner, maybe somebody from planning, myself, you know, and the police department sit down and look at what we need to change in the ordinance and bring that back to the commission either in 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
Okay, so in 2 weeks you could have something back here?
Yeah, assuming we can get everybody in the same room and to meet, yeah.
Most of those aren't those parking issues, they're complaint driven mainly, aren't they?
They are. They truly are. So I think there's a lot more non-compliance out there. I could probably say come summer, I'm probably one of those. I actually have 7 cars in the summer, and we only have 2 licensed drivers. So I know I probably have a car or two that sits there longer than 72 hours. But they're writing me a ticket now.
I guess, you know, one of the things I'm more concerned with is this time of the year, like today, you know, the crews went through once and they're driving around, they're having to go around vehicles. And to me, it's more important if they have to go back tomorrow and the car is still parked there, then I'd say let's impound them, because then they are really a nuisance. And I realize some people can't get out or whatever, but to me that's more of a problem this time of year than in the summer. But I don't know. I agree with you. Something should probably be done, Commissioner Simmons.
Mayor, I like the complaint driven. I don't want to go away from that. But in this particular case, it is complaint driven. I'm getting a call all the time, and it's just unbelievable.
I agree with you, Commissioner Simmons, but I'd like to add to that, you know, a lot of our newer developments are R1SM. So we've got narrower roads, a lot more buildings, and less parking spots. And I can only imagine what it's like for the plow drivers, the sanitation operators, trying to get up and down those roads. And I've watched it. I've gotten complaints. You're getting complaints, Commissioner Simmons. people are playing games, more games than probably what the police department knows about. So I think we do have to put an ordinance in effect that's gonna do something about it. So we're not wasting the police department's time or our own employees' times, because that's what's going on. I've watched people back their pickup with a hitch into the bumper of a car just to move it or make the point, or, you know, and there's games, and we don't want something to go beyond that. So that's my take on it, that we need to put an ordinance into effect.
I guess what does the chief think, I guess? We haven't heard really from you, chief.
It absolutely takes resources to go out on these complaints, but like Chris says, there's pros and cons to it all. Of you take the one side off, and then you got the schools and other developments. So without sitting down as a group to talk it out, there's pros and cons either way we look at it. But something could be done to stop the games of beefing up the ordinance a little bit. There's no doubt that would help us put the end to those that just want to play the game.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of problems with the one I'm referring to. 1 inch, 2 inches, it's just crazy. So if you guys could get together within the next 2 weeks, I'd be willing to wait on that. I still like the idea of enhancing that to 100 feet to making it, because that takes care of all these people at the same time, Chris. That these individuals, when you got to move 100 feet, sometimes that's taking them into another block. And those people aren't going to like that. So you know what I'm saying? They're going to get complaints. The pressure's going to come, peer pressure at some point too.
Certainly will.
But I'm willing to wait 2 weeks if you could get together and come back with something, so.
We can do that.
It's never going to be perfect, I realize that.
Unfortunately, it's the few that are spoiling it for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people do it right, but there's always, as you said, Commissioner Simmons, there's always a few bad apples. Okay, well, we'll wait to hear from you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Heath.
Okay, item 10, downtown streetlight selection. Matt, I just want to let the commissioners know that Commissioner Wentz will not be voting on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. The Downtown Business Association has studied these downtown streetlights in conjunction with the developer that's putting up the two buildings, Cheyenne Plaza and Pioneer Place. They looked at a whole bunch of different lights, narrowed it down to 4 selections. Basically, the idea is they want to bring it down to more of a residential pole. These are going to be installed as per the P3, so this isn't the city installing them. However, it will set the tone for the downtown going forward. So the 4 different styles that they selected as finalists, this acorn-looking one was what they picked. The idea is that they're trying to keep it a balance between the ultra-modern and the ultra-traditional. So you have some older buildings that would maybe play toward a more traditional type of light, but now you're getting brand new buildings that are a little more modern, and they're trying to find something in the middle. The poles themselves, again, are going to either be 15 feet or a little taller, again, much smaller than what we have down there today. We're going to work with Chad Zander to ensure that they can put the baskets and the banners and everything on them, and the height might change a little. So what I'm looking for from you today is to confirm that this is an appropriate style and you're okay with it, and we'll move forward. Again, there will be 4 lights to begin with in front of Cheyenne Plaza, and then there will be 4 additional lights. We are working on a grant, as has been mentioned, and depending on what happens with that, at some point we'd like to see all of the lights between 7th and Main Avenue change out and added to both sides of the road. So that's what this is setting the tone for.
Looks good.
Looks nice, yeah.
Any,
Porter, do they give off a fair amount of light? They're not be too small, are they?
They do, actually. So we did get photometrics. Now, with having them on the one side of the road, it's not going to be as bright as the 30-foot lights. However, originally when we started this process, we were looking at trying to get 30-foot lights to look like a downtown and keep them on one side of the road. And then through work with the DBA and Commissioner Simmons, it just didn't make sense. If it's going to be a downtown, they need to be more of a pedestrian-style light, which means at some point we'll have to get them to the other side. But these lights are quite a bit brighter, and they have the ability to really control where the light goes. So we feel like we're gonna have similar to like what we have today. Really, if you walk on that east side of the road today, it's pretty dark over there.
Those two new buildings have outside lights too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. It's the sun down there.
Looks good.
I think it's nice, Matt, too, that they're they're shorter than the other ones and they're not gonna glare into the neighborhoods.
Yep.
You know, so that's a huge, because that, like when we put those big lights, Commissioner Thorstad, out on Cheyenne Street, we got complaints from across there. You know, those are huge, and so I think this is a great option to go to.
Any questions of Matt?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Again, Commissioner Wentz will be abstaining from this one. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Oh, we have the resolution number, a resolution of necessity for project number 1308. John.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Commission. The first resolution of necessity you have before you is for district number 1308, which is a sewer improvement district that is running, the right-of-way runs to the north of West Fargo and then crosses over into Fargo to connect up to their sewer system. This is the first step in the process of using court action to acquire the property. We haven't filed anything yet. This is just merely the first step. It indicates that the project right-of-way is necessary for the project. We'll be coming back to the commission later on with what the final offers to the landowners will be. We need to obtain appraisals for the property that's been identified along the right-of-way, and then final offers that'll be sent out to the property owner. So this is step one in the process. It also authorizes myself and my staff to go ahead and start that process of acquiring the property. And once again, we're still trying to negotiate with the property owners, and this is the first step. So just want to clarify, there was a newspaper article. We have not gotten to the step yet where we need to use eminent domain. So this is just step number one in the process.
No, there's only two. Any questions to John? Again, this is a resolution of necessity for project number 1308. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next one is resolution of necessity for district number 2244. John.
Yeah, this is for the Cheyenne Street project on south of I-94. A similar resolution. We're starting the process if we need to acquire the property through the court system. KLJ has been negotiating with the property owners along Cheyenne Street. There is one property owner that we may need to proceed with eminent domain on. The parties are just too far apart on our offer versus the property owner's offer. We're still trying to negotiate with them, so tonight we have a resolution of necessity. We'll be coming back with the last final offer before we proceed with court. Very similar, but it's necessary for the project to continue. And my understanding and talking with KLJ is they've had a lot of discussions with the property owner, as has Tina. She's been involved in the negotiations, so we're taking another step towards possibly needing eminent domain on that parcel.
I imagine time is of the essence in this case.
Correct.
Start working on Cheyenne Street. Is there any questions of John or Tina? If not, do I hear a motion? It's a resolution of necessity for District 2244.
Make the motion to approve. Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Tina.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I just have a couple things, and I'll let it get turned over for the next agenda item. Chris just informed me that the interstate justification report was approved by Federal Highway today, so that's our last approval on the interchange, so that's in good shape. Now we're waiting for the Sovereign Lands permit to get through the State Water Commission, which that will come through just fine, he said. So we're moving in the right direction. We've been working on easements, as John said, and a lot of them have been obtained. We're in the process of working with a few others, and then we just had one or two that we just couldn't. So we're working through this whole process. Through the process of the easements, I've been talking with John, and we're looking at setting up a policy on what we are willing to offer for temporary easements, permanent easements, and purchases of land, as it seems to have gotten to be a really tenuous, difficult project. As the city's gotten bigger and our projects have gotten more complicated, we're just running into a lot more problems, and it's taking up a lot of time, energy, and I think it's harder on, not just hard on us, but it's hard on the people we're trying to work with. So we want to have something a little more solid to work off of. So we'll be bringing that back.
And just adding on to that, last year we standardized all the procedures for the documentation of acquiring property. So I think we got the procedures down really well now, the negotiation process, the documentation. So we had standardized agreements to speed up that part of the process. And now it's more of a higher level of what those offers should look like, what's our pricing policy, so.
Yes. Thank you, John. The only other thing that I have is I wanted to ask you if anybody has any concerns with the email I had sent out questioning if it would be okay to move court into this chamber versus in the court location it's at. And that's just for safety purposes, for ease of accessibility for the police department, all of those different items. And if you had any questions, I'd be willing to answer those.
Now, tell us again what you do then with the old court.
I would want to bring back to you a plan for future use of it. What I was thinking is, currently right now we have our 2 receptionists, and when you walk in those doors, you don't see them. You see the court doors, and the receptionists are over here. They take all the billing, everything. There's a couple different options floating out there. One of them would be to refurbish the court area and maybe turn it into more of a finance assessing area where they get the most traffic, and so have the girls in a more have the reception utility billing people in a more secure area, create a secure area for them, and then have accessibility for customers that come in to be able to meet with people to talk about everything from homestead credit to I want to pay off my special assessments to different things. We just get a better flow, because the problem we're finding is that we were very careful to design this side, and then we just kind of tossed this together because we just wanted to figure out what to do. But the flow for the public is not good. People are always getting lost, and it isn't conducive for our public when they're trying to work with anybody else away from this main hallway. So I wanted to I've talked with staff some, and I want to meet with them some more, and then talk with the people that actually sit in the positions, and then work as a group to bring something to you guys in the future that will not only provide additional security for staff, as we've had issues with some security within the building, but also provide better flow for our taxpayers and people that come into business. So I'll bring that forward to you later.
Chief, are you okay with making this the courtroom?
Absolutely. From a security standpoint for City Hall, it makes a lot more sense to have it here where we can have full security and just have this side of the wing. We're having people arrested every court session for warrants, and we have the 2 ladies sitting right outside of there. We've had a couple instances where people have taken off and gone to the other side of City Hall where there's no protection. So this would allow us to have everyone down here to handle court and to make sure that no one is getting to the other side where there's unarmed city employees dealing with people that are very unhappy and have warrants out for them. So we believe this makes good sense for all of the city.
Or sleeping on the floor.
Yes.
Personally, I think I'd like to see those receptionists moved, because they're not in a adequate position at all for any type of flow, like you mentioned, Tina.
Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing. You walk, especially when you come through the middle doors. If you come from this way, it's different, but a lot of people still park in the back. Yeah. It's like, oh, where am I going? And it's total freedom When you come through those doors, it's pretty much total freedom.
Yep.
Those receptionists can't stop anybody from coming your way. That should almost be maybe moved around so it faces you somehow, and then they've got to go through them to get to anybody in the back.
Right,
Through a door.
And that's a very good point, and I appreciate that, Commissioner Simmons. And we've talked with Heath, and that's more discussions we'll have on the safety and security and how, at what point do we want to make it so that you have to be allowed through or let through to get to the rest of staff? Where's that breaking point? Where is the best place for our receptionists and our utility billing clerks? Is it move them up where the clerk of court is, or make a new window for them there? I mean, we'll find out a bunch of different options, vet it through staff that have to actually live with it, and then bring it back to you guys for final approval.
Okay.
Good.
And Heath did also check with the Judge Stanarski, and she felt she was in favor of the move down here, as she felt it would be safer and more convenient.
Well, we'll just wait to hear back then from.
She's just like she's got a door over here to get out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they could actually move court as soon as this week, because we have all the capabilities in here. Everything's here. So, we could start by moving court in here right away, and then continue to work on our other safety issues.
Good.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
You can do video conferencing in here.
Yep.
Courthouse. Okay.
I already checked with IT, and they said everything would work in here as well, so.
Okay.
The only other item I have is, I will be out the end of this week and next week, on vacation, but I will be able to be reached by phone and by email, and I'll have my laptop. So if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call or email me.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Tina. Before we get to the next item on the comprehensive plan, I've had a request to take a 5-minute break. So let's do that. We'll come back in 5 minutes or so. Thank you. I do mean 5 minutes.
Hey, there's Cisco in Tennessee. Hey. All right, not today. How are you? No today? No snow? Can't show it?
No, we're pretty dry. Actually, it's raining a lot.
It's on 40th Avenue, we have two little short lights in there. Right by the little park on 40th Avenue. There's two little short lights in the light.
They're flying the other way. I think what's going on is the trucks is white. I think it has to do with the overhead power lines, and if they have them the regular way, they could get hit by trucks because they were so low. I don't know. I'm going off the top of my mind, but I know which ones you're talking about. I'm driving down there saying,
I got a couple of
yeah, there's a logic to madness. I think that's what it is. Oh, goodness.
Oh. I-29 is closed from the North Dakota border to Iowa. Yeah.
Still snowing hard down there.
Must be.
Snow is so heavy it doesn't really blow that much, but it also sticks on the road, so it makes it pretty tough to drive.
Okay, we'll reconvene the City Commission meeting, and we'll have a presentation on the comprehensive plan. Take it away.
All right. So we're glad to be back. For those who don't know me, I'm Brian Wright, Principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative. We are leading your consulting team on the comprehensive plan and are here to give you the presentation, a brief presentation about the draft. I'm going to assume you've all read it, but I know some of the public may not have, and those who are at home may not have as well. So I'm going to go through quickly, and Sandrine's going to jump in for a brief portion as well, and then we'll get to Q&A if we've got any questions or whatever. So for those who don't know, a comprehensive plan is a long-range planning document. It's establishing a vision for the city, providing policy and guidance for growth and development, and as action plans to direct the implementation of that vision. So it's the highest level document, and over on the right you can see a draft version of the cover that we may be working on. The comprehensive plan is really part of an overall framework and structure that starts to link the government documents together, and it's based on state statutes, and sort of below the comprehensive plan comes a zoning ordinance and capital improvement plans and annual budgets, and we hear there's a parks plan to come in the future, and economic development plans, et cetera. And so the comprehensive plan plays a crucial role in all of that as we go forward. So the thing that's important to note is when we're working on a comprehensive plan that it is crucial to get the public's involvement, and we've worked really hard with staff and with the elected and appointed officials to get that kind of input, maybe beyond anything that's ever happened here before. So we had a public kickoff where everybody came and started to learn about the project, and that there was even a project that's about to happen. We did visioning sessions where people started to talk about where growth and development ought to occur, and conservation and those sorts of things, and just started to brainstorm and kind of get the creative juices flowing. We had donuts, of course, as always, Sandy's, and I'm looking forward to getting some on this trip too, hopefully tomorrow. We had bouncy houses for kids and everything you could hope for. But the most important part was the Planapalooza. We had great attendance, and as far as elected and appointed officials, more so here than we do in most communities, so congratulations to all of you. You're doing a wonderful job. And that was a really robust, nearly week-long process where we got everybody to come and participate. The plan is organized, set up with the introduction, talking about the process in detail, the idea of this urban is back. We heard that there's the concept looking to maybe transform some of the suburban building typologies and methodologies into a little bit more urban model in certain areas, but not everywhere. Obviously, this is a very suburban community. Looking at the vision as the next part of that, and then there's getting into all the details, facts and figures and statistics and data that we learned about in the So You Think You Know West Fargo. Then moving into the big ideas, where we talk about some of the concepts that came from, most of them from the public, some of them from us as consultants, and just working to drag the information out and help people crystallize the vision. And then the vision has begun to be articulated in the Around the Plan section. Tonight we're just going to really focus on the big ideas and Around the Plan. We're not going to go through everything, but just wanted everybody to be familiar with the overall organization of the document as you're sitting down to look at it. And then action plan comes for how to move forward in the future. So the vision and guiding principles are in some ways the most important thing that this plan really sets forth. Because this document overall is a vision document, the vision statement that you find in the document is important, and it's found on this page with this really cool graphic. But we have these guiding principles that surround the vision statement. So we talk about healthy and vibrant, and we're looking at authentic, balanced. I have the vision here. So we wanted to be brief and concise though too. So we have the vision statement that says, the community vision for West Fargo is to be a complete, sustainable, and prosperous city that plays a pivotal role in the metro by providing a high quality of life for its citizens and a thriving economy. And if you can accomplish those things in that brief statement, you've done a lot. But in order to do that, we have these guiding principles. And these are the principles that you would use as you evaluate, let's say, a zoning change or anything you're going to do in the future. You say, well, does it fall under some of these guiding principle categories? So healthy, vibrant, authentic, balanced, welcoming, connected, fiscally responsible, engaged, bold, and proactive. And some of these are really exciting because they some of them came really easily. People said they want to be healthy and have a vibrant economy and those kind of things. But things like engaged and bold and proactive were some of the ones that we were excited to add to the list that were less likely to have popped up. And we heard that people want to be, really take on a leadership role beyond even what you've done in the past in the region, and have people really following what you guys are doing, which is going to be exciting, and starting with this document. So I'll have Sandrine kind of run us through a few of the big ideas here quickly, and then I'll wrap it up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sandrine Thibault. I'm part of Brian's team, and I'm very excited to be back also. Good to see you all again. So again, quickly, because our assumption is that you've read the document word for word. Right? I know some of you have. Hopefully. But just a little bit of the big ideas, and this is really sort of a big piece of the meat of the plan, where you find a lot of those sort of recommendations and strategies for the futures. And I don't want to read necessarily everything that is on here, but just to point out a few in here. So as part of growing your economy, we often see comprehensive plans as economic development plans, really. So the plan talks about, things like pursuing food and dining opportunities, also retail. There's an analysis in that portion of the plan that our economic person did on the team for you guys, and there is definitely potential to capture more of the retail, especially with the food and dining industry within the region here. Taking the lead on tax increment financing is just another one of those ideas. You guys use those already, but often they're initiated by the private sector, but often the cities themselves initiate them to then attract more private investment. So these are just a couple of the strategies that are mentioned here. And you'll see also, as you read the big ideas, throughout the big ideas, you'll see all these livability measures. These are actual measurable items that we've included in the plan for you to track your progress over time. So these we'll be able to reevaluate on an annual basis or every 5 years how you're doing in trying to meet those targets.
I think in there you talked about doing something every year. I like that idea, so that we can measure. I don't think we've really had that before, have we, Larry? And so that, every year we can kind of get a report. One question was, do you envision that each department head would kind of do something for a full report to the commission, or maybe probably getting a little too technical here than needed, but I really like that idea. Mm-hmm. And so, you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's up to you ultimately. I think communities do it differently. The livability measures are a set of about 12 to 15 measures that we've identified that you can track over time. On an annual basis, you might not see that much progress on some of those, maybe every 5 years or so. But then at the end of the plan, Brian mentioned how it's all set up. The action plan is where you have sort of the implementation metrics that includes all of the strategies and recommendations included in the plan, and it kind of identifies which department would be taking the lead and all that. And those might be things that on an annual basis you want to ask, you know, your departments to just say, hey, have you made any progress on this or not yet, because it's kind of longer term or something like that. But
don't do it yearly, it'll get lost in your shuffle, I guess, is kind of my feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. People have done it.
Idea, no, I think it's.
Yeah, people have done.
What you could do to actually have competition is have each department evaluate another department instead of themselves.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Kind of liking that.
So the plan also talks about, in general, strengthening neighborhoods and expanding some housing choices that you have here. One thing we found, you know, during the planning process, I remember that we heard from a lot of folks that, oh, we have too much multifamily, we have too much multifamily. Well, there's actually just 29% of your housing stock that is multifamily right now. I think a lot of the big multifamily buildings that people think about are actually outside of your city limits. There, a lot of them are in Fargo. You know, so there's definitely an opportunity for looking at allowing accessory dwelling units. I mean, we just heard today that the new buildings on Cheyenne in the downtown area, you know, the 20 or so apartments rented very quickly. So that's wonderful news, and that shows that there are folks who want to live in the, you know, a certain sort of more downtown mixed-use environment. So that's wonderful to see. So continuing to work on various types of housing, I think would be certainly good. And the plan talks about this, you know, increasing a little bit of the mix of uses. And again, in the downtown area, we're seeing that with the new buildings that are coming up with retail on the ground floor and upper floors of housing, which is wonderful. So you're already doing a lot of what the plan talks about, which is wonderful. So the comp plan was also a partnering, you know, in this project we had the partner, the Parks District was a great partner in this, and we have a chapter, my understanding, and I'm looking at Barb in the back, is that the Parks District wants to do a more in-depth master plan eventually. But, you know, we did a little bit of work here in the comp plan for them. So the main recommendation of this part of the plan is to actually develop a more comprehensive Parks Master Plan. Of course, but, you know, we all know the Parks District is so wonderful. They've done a wonderful job. They've actually met a lot of the national standards in sort of the amount of parks provided per capita and all of that. So just continuing to do the great work that they do and continuing to use these national standards and strengthening the partnerships with the city and with the school district, which they've already been working on for many years now. Transportation was also a key component of the planning process. We've heard a lot about that, and we have some great livability measures here as well. And here we're talking about improving the network. If you read this section of the plan, you read that a lot of especially in the southern part of the city that's developed in the last decade or so, the street network, the way it's been developed, it sort of puts a lot of the traffic on the main arterials. So thinking a little bit about how the street network is developed and designed, parking design also for development often, you know, are in front of buildings along the street, which is not super conducive to a more walkable pedestrian environment. So the plan just talks about a variety of strategies that you guys could put in place to do a little bit of work on this. Also providing reliable services and municipal transparency. So adopting a capital improvements plan. My understanding is you guys are working on that right now. It's just wonderful to try to plan further out in the future your infrastructure and investments. Also, you know, continuing to have a balanced city budget on an annual basis. Looking at some waste management policies. So there's a lot of wonderful information here as well. Protecting and enhancing natural resources. I think the main one here is the local tree canopy, trying to increase that to at least 20%. You're at about 2.7% right now. A lot of communities around the country are all the way up to about 50% of urban tree canopies, so you guys have a little bit of ways to go here. So I think this was sort of one of the main recommendations of this section of the plan. and you can read more about that. Increasing community resiliency, you know, there's been a lot of work done already in the region. You guys have the Cheyenne diversion right now that took care of a lot of the flooding for West Fargo here. There's the new diversion potentially coming in the future. Also, just continuing on this great work that you've been doing, working with the Metro COG on hazard mitigation planning and, you know, emergency preparedness. All that is also part of it. And then finally is establishing the downtown as a cultural center. So, and you'll see in what Brian will present in a second, where we did a little bit more planning and sort of showed what could be if the downtown is continuing to sort of evolve over time. But I think, you know, again, with the two new buildings coming in, that's sort of happening now, which is wonderful to see. But, you know, contemplating creating a business improvement district is something we talked about during the planning process. Continuing to promote and really augment the facade improvement program that you already have in place, to kind of push that a little bit more, and along with potentially updated design guidelines for that could be really helpful, and help, you know, current business owners to sort of improve the look and feel of their property. And I think I'm going to pass it back to Brian with this. So thank you. So we invite you to read and spend more time with it.
All right, so I'm going to walk you guys quickly through around the plan, and most of this, if not all of this, was actually generated during the Planapalooza. The thing that's exciting to me is, and sort of that as we've been here today talking with different people, is hearing about all of the initiatives that are in, you know, this part of the plan and other parts of the plan that are already moving forward before the plan has even been adopted. And so, to me, the communities that do that, and we have several of our clients that do that from time to time, that's a place that I know things are going to be even better in the future than they are today. So good job working on that. One of the key parts of the plan is the growth and conservation map. Now, you'll notice this is different than what you have in your current comp plan, and it's not just a conventional land use, future land use map. And so we had a developer in today who was asking questions about this and how it worked, and they seemed to like the fact that it wasn't, while it's specific in certain ways, and even more specific than your other plan, than your old plan in other ways, it's also not as limiting in other ways. So for really figuring out here, the point of this map is to determine where, sort of in general, future growth happens, the intensity of that growth, and where conservation happens, and really other areas where you just leave it alone as it is now. And so that starts to become a really the framework of the planning proposals that you see. And so we, of course, looked at downtown. You know, people kept talking about downtown, and we kept saying, where is downtown? In fact, I just met a woman today who said she lived in downtown, and I asked her how she finds her apartment. And she said, no, we have a big building now that I live in. And so I said, oh, that's wonderful. So we haven't gotten to go down and see it yet, so I can't wait. It's really exciting for us. We're going to go tomorrow morning. But anyway, so we did the plan, as you all saw, and we showed how we could stitch the neighborhood in, transform the corridor, and really focusing on creating a new civic space, featuring the park across the street that's already there, and then moving down the corridor and showing how infill can occur, and, you know, how parking needs to be coordinated and collaborated from, you know, parcel to parcel, and looking at also shared parking concepts and all of the things that you guys have been talking about. You know, how do we solve this problem or that problem tonight? I don't know what I can do about people moving their boat or their trailer a few inches, but in general, we know that parking is important. So the thing to note is, and we haven't heard anybody freaking out about this yet, but again, as I said during the Planapalooza, you all are so kind and polite that maybe they're just being secretive about it. But you know, we're drawing on property that is currently owned by people, not owned by the city, not owned by us. We have no control over it. And so one thing you'll notice in this image, the gas station that's prominently featured in this image is now the city park. So this isn't to say, yes, the gas station should go away. It's just to say, if you want to create a downtown that's identifiable and recognizable, keep doing what you're doing with the mixed-use infill buildings that you're doing, but you also can do something like this and once you see, I think, especially now hearing stories about the apartments renting out so quickly, I think the success breeds success, and people are going to carry on and see that, wow, this really does work, even in a place that has been traditionally suburban in nature. And so anyway, so there's a potential vision for the future. Here, looking down the street, what that might look like, transforming it. We heard people talk about biking and sustainable stormwater and making things more walkable and mixed use, and so all of those things are in this image. And so the image isn't to say there should be a building that looks like this and has to be 3 stories like that or whatever. It's really just to illustrate the concepts that people have talked about throughout the process. Looking at 32nd here, and kind of dealing with the existing proposal that was before you, and I understand it's probably changed by now, but showing how we could infill around it and make this not just one quadrant of the intersection with the new development important, but the entire intersection could become a place. So that was crucial, and so we showed how you could, again, transform. Here you might have some more office, mixed use with some residential, start to civilize the highway, so that it becomes more pedestrian friendly and walkable in the future. And then looking at the wilds, and obviously there's been development that's occurred in the wilds, and we picked that because it happens to be about the last bit of greenfield space that you have currently in the city limits. And so we wanted to show not just how the wilds might have been done differently to accomplish some of the goals that we heard from the community, but also as you're looking at the any growth or expansion of the city boundaries, how that development might occur to make more complete communities that are walkable and mixed use. And so we showed a variety of housing types and sizes, and to meet all sort of the stages of life and preferences of people. Some people want to live in attached townhouses and not have a yard to take care of, and other people would like to have a larger lot. In some new developments, if they're on a main corridor, you can have some opportunities for commercial spaces, et cetera, but all the while working with the existing drainage ways and making plenty of open space, et cetera, to make sure that it's more sensitively dealing with the landscape and the terrain. And then here you can see what that vision might look like in the future. And then the lagoons. We've heard the news that the lagoons have been moving forward in various directions, and so we were showing if they were able to be filled in one day, and how that might occur, and how we can accomplish some of your goals for looking at doing industrial development. So it's not all just the sexy mixed-use downtown stuff. Matt needs tools for industry as well, and so how that might occur is obviously different than a conventional industrial park, but is an exciting vision nonetheless. We want to even make the industrial side of things sexy. So next steps, going through the public review process. We have public comments coming in. We need more people to carry on and continue to give input on that. There's the webpage, wf2.pointo.com. You can go and give feedback there directly online. There's been a lot of good people being involved on Facebook as well. And then the adoption process. Looking for a planning commission hearing March 12th, I think. City commission first reading, public hearing April the 2nd, and then a follow-up on April the 16th if all goes well. And these are all good goals to have, but we understand that it's a dynamic process, and we'll see how things go in the future. So that's the end of the presentation. Oh yes, sorry. There's also another presentation just for the public tomorrow. Similar content, same content in fact, but for people who want to come and ask questions and stuff tomorrow.
That's at noon, right?
That's at noon, yeah, at noon. Thank you. And in here. So anyway, so we'll stop there and field any questions if you have them.
Any questions or comments? Questions or comments?
I'll ask a question. I submitted a bunch of feedback, I guess, so I'm not going to start asking every question I put on there. We'd be here all night. But some of the feedback I've gotten from some people around the area, particularly developers and stuff like that, they're concerned that they think the concepts are great, but they're just concerned that we're going to have like a magical cutoff date, and from now on, everything built in West Fargo has to be based on your plan. Is that the case or not, or will it be a continuation? Because I believe the market has to change to, you know, we do have people that do like a lot of your concepts, but I think as a whole, people have been used to what you see is what we got. It's because that's what the market either likes or has gotten used to. So as their concern is they don't want to see us draw a hard, fast line in the sand, and from this point forward, you want to build in West Fargo, you're going to be building this.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I think that a couple of things. One is nothing will change to a certain extent once this is adopted. When things will change is once the zoning catches up to the comprehensive plan, and so that's sort of the next step. The zoning is, you know, it's the law, it's the rule that says you have to do this, that, and the other. Now, the way that you typically would write zoning to respond to a comprehensive plan like this would be much more focused on character. It would be more focused on the qualitative aspects rather than necessarily quantitative aspects. It's not so focused on separating one use from the next. It's about creating the type of environment that is called for in the plan. Now, that said, I think you guys are at a crossroads. You know, you have to decide as a community, if we're working really hard to make our downtown recognizable as a downtown, and people are going to the efforts and putting in the investment that they're doing to make these mixed-use, more urban environments, are we willing to allow conventional suburban-style development to occur there, for instance? So if a new gas station wanted to go in on the corner, would that be okay? And so if the answer is no, not there, then yes, you have to start doing things differently. If it is a subdivision, let's say, just a single-family subdivision, I think that what we learned is that while people buy homes here and pay a lot of money, I didn't meet people who were saying, we love what's being provided to us just as it is. Without exception, I met people who said, we didn't realize that there was something different than this. And that's why I showed, if you remember the closing presentation of Planapalooza, this marketing video from this development in Alabama, happens to be the same price point as you guys, different architectural vernacular, et cetera, but to see what people could get for their money. So what I think, if I'm a developer, I'm saying like, wow, this is great. This comprehensive plan is allowing me easily to do these things that my market, my potential customers are asking for that I haven't been giving them thus far. It means I'm going to have to retool a few things. It means it's going to be a little bit challenging in that regard, but it's a great opportunity for that change to happen. Now, that said, you guys can say, you know what, like, we love that vision, but we're not sure that we're ready to go there. We're not ready to go that far and be that bold yet. And so we're still going to let people do the suburban stuff next to the other stuff, and or maybe you say it's got to be the pure vision in these areas, but over here it can be maybe something in between. Now, what you have to, my recommendation is that you make sure that you don't water things down enough so that everybody loses equally, right? So you want to make sure that if you really want that vision to occur, then you have to be ready to be bold and go after it. It is scary to the development community, as it is in every place when they get a comprehensive plan that changes direction. We're working, about to start a project in Munster, Indiana, and they literally have declared they want to come to this fork in the road, and we want to move away from suburban style development. Well, you can imagine the developers there are kind of losing their mind. They have, it's typical for them, instead of following the zoning, that every development that comes through is a PUD, a plain unit development. So the zoning that's there is really irrelevant. You kind of negotiate every project as it comes through. So the citizens are freaking out every time the development's going to happen. Like, what are we going to get? We don't know what it is. Developers are saying, what is the city going to make us do? They're going to beat us up like again. And so they're looking for that certainty. So it's really, in the end, up to you guys. The plan has a certain, kind of direction it takes based on the feedback we got, but you guys can take it in whatever direction you want. Long answer, sorry.
Did Larry coach you on PUDs?
Oh, are you guys struggling with that here too?
Probably did.
Yeah, no, he didn't. We were in another place in Colorado, and they had like 78 PUDs, and it took up like 96% of the land was all PUDs. It was wild. New zoning changes, you actually wouldn't have to have PUDs, by the way, if the zoning was set up properly.
You'll never convince Larry of that. Any other questions or comments? Again, that's at noon tomorrow, right?
noon tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Appreciate it. Thanks for y'all's time.
Good job. Any other non-agenda items? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.